Effective learning styles and effective study techniques. How to develop effective study habits. Welcome to this course on learning styles and effective studying techniques. Our learning outcomes are to identify your learning style and implications for studying. We'll also look at how to quantify your time commitment and availability. Then, how to develop an effective study plan based on your learning style. Most people have developed a preference for how they learn. One style is not better than another, and all the approaches to learning can be improved. Effective learners know how their minds work and are able to adapt their studying strategies to any learning situation. Let's begin with a simple exercise. Kindly write the response that best applies to the sentences I'm going to say. And I'm beginning with, my study habits are good, fair, or poor. For every hour in class, I study 1 hour, 2 hours, or more than 3 hours. I have an organized plan and schedule for study, true or false. I have a quiet place in which I study, true or false. I usually approach studying with a positive attitude, true or false. Last question, in what ways could you improve your study habits? Now, studying is a skill. Being successful in school requires a high level of study skills. Students must first learn these skills, practice them, and develop effective study habits in order to be successful. Note that often the study habits and practices developed and used in high school, these do not work for students in universities. Good study habits include many different skills, such as time management, self-discipline, concentration, memorization, organization, and effort. And your desire to succeed is important too. Now in section 1, we are going to understand how our brain works. The human brain has been put into different parts. Some of these parts are the frontal lobe, temporal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, brainstem, and the cerebellum. The frontal lobe is responsible for abstract thinking and problem solving. That's what we use for both visual and auditory learning. The temporal lobe processes sound and is used for auditory learning. The parietal lobe is responsible for sensory information. Now that is what we use for kinesthetic learning. The occipital lobe processes colors, shapes, and is used for visual learning. With the help of the corpus callosum, the brain has been divided into the left and the right brain. The left brain responds well to verbal instruction. It likes to learn in step-by-step format. It prefers writing and is planned and structured. Now, the left brain also does well on multiple choice tests. It's analytical and recalls people's names. The right brain responds well to demonstrated instructions. It likes to learn general concepts and then specifics. It prefers open-ended questions. This right brain also responds to tone of voice. It's impulsive, recalls people's faces, and is what is responsible for holistic or global learning. Section 2. Understanding your learning style. A learning style is how you learn best through different approaches or ways of learning. There isn't a one-size-fits-all solution for learning, especially since every student has a slightly different learning style. Before you can determine the study method that works best for you, it's important to first find out what your learning style is. Although there are many ways to learn, some methods work better for certain learning styles than others. In this section, we'll help you to determine which learning style you are and which methods will work best for you. By way of the learning styles, we have 7 learning styles. These learning styles are verbal, visual, musical or auditory, physical or kinesthetic, logical, mathematical, social, and solitary. My question to you is, what is your learning style? Let me give you a hint. If your learning style is verbal, then words are your strong point. You prefer to use words both in speech and in writing. If yours is visual, then you prefer to use pictures, diagrams, images, and spatial understanding to help you learn. If it's musical or auditory, then it means you prefer using sounds or music, or even rhythms to help you learn. If your learning style is physical or kinesthetic, that means you use your hands, body, and sense of touch to help you learn. You might act things out. Those of you with logical mathematical as your learning style, your learning is easier for you if you use logic, reasoning, systems, and sequences. For those of you with social as a learning style, you like to learn new things as part of a group. Explaining your understanding to a group helps you to learn. For those of you with social as a learning style, you like to learn new things as part of a group. Explaining your understanding to a group helps you to learn. For solitary learning style, you like to learn alone. you use self-study and prefer your own company when learning. For those of you whose learning styles are the combination learning style, your learning style is a combination of 2 or more learning styles. Now, according to the VAC model that helps students to know and understand their learning style, is an acronym that refers to the 4 common learning styles, which are visual, auditory, reading or writing preference, and kinesthetic. So, how should you learn based on your learning style? Back to our 7 learning styles, which are visual or spatial, oral, verbal or linguistic, physical or kinesthetic, solitary or intrapersonal, social or interpersonal, logical or mathematical. As said earlier, if your learning style is the visual or spatial learning, you prefer using pictures, images, and mind maps. In order for you to learn better, we advise that you use images, pictures, and other visual media to learn. You can also use spatial organization and mind maps to connect different ideas. Also, replace words with pictures and use color to highlight major and minor links. If you are an oral or auditory musical, then you prefer using sound and music. In order for you, as an oral or auditory musical learner, to learn better, use sound and music to learn. You can also play ambient recordings to improve your concentration. Also, create mnemonics or memorize new ideas using rhythms and rhyme. For those of you who are verbal or linguistic learners, you prefer using words both in speech and writing. So, we advise that you use word-based techniques and study material out loud. Also, when reading out loud, make it dramatic and varied in order to aid recall, because a monotone voice makes information hard to remember. You can also try verbal role-playing to better understand concepts. For those of you with a physical or kinesthetic learning style, you prefer using your body and hands and sense of touch. So, we advise that you use touch, action, movement, role-playing, and hands-on activities to learn. Also, describe the physical sensations of a new experience using words and adverbs. Also, use physical objects like flashcards, miniature models, etc. If you are a solitary or intrapersonal learner, then you prefer to study alone. For such a person, we advise that you align your goals with personal beliefs to maximize motivation. You can also keep a journal outlining your inner thoughts, feelings, and observations for later review. You can also study in private, asking an expert for help when needed. If you are a social or interpersonal learner, then you prefer working cooperatively with other people. For such a person, we advise that you work and study with others as much as possible. Use one-on-one or group role-playing and feedback. You can also share what you study with a group to cross-pollinate ideas, collect best practices, and learn from others. If your learning style is the logical mathematical, then that means that you prefer using logic, reasoning, patterns, and systems. We advise that such a person should seek to understand the real why of any new concept and explore the connections between ideas. You should also create lists by extracting key points from your material and then identify areas to focus on. Lastly, we advise that you see the big picture by creating diagrams that show all parts of an entire system. The 4 common learning styles are visual learning, auditory learning, kinesthetic learning, and read or write learning. If you remember people's faces better than their names and enjoy learning through YouTube videos, you are probably or at least partially a visual learner. If you enjoy talking to yourself or prefer phone calls to emails, you very well might be an auditory learner who studies best by listening. If you hate following owner's manuals and you often tap your foot to music, then you are probably a kinesthetic learner, which means that you learn best through physical activity. If you need to read and or write down information to learn it, if you learn better by reading from a textbook and taking lots of notes and prefer to learn through words, then that means you are likely to be a read or write learner. Let's move to some effective tips for the various learning styles. If you're a visual learner, you are probably wondering, how best can I learn? Well, we advise that you visualize what you are studying. You can use color in your notes, such as colored pens, highlighters, etc. You should also visualize what the teacher or lecturer is lecturing about. You can draw pictures and diagrams. Use mind maps in your notes. You can use picture and graphics to reinforce learning. Also, you can design and use flashcards. Lastly, you can learn from videos. Another question you are probably having right now is, so which note-taking method works best for visual learners? I have an answer for you. The best note-taking methods for visual learners are methods that use pictures, diagrams, and colors. Organized notes are key for this type of learner, especially if you are color-coded. A great example of a note-taking technique for visual learners is the mind map strategy. This method allows you to make connections between ideas and organize the information in a way that makes sense to you. These maps can include doodles, colors, and shapes to help with memory recall. In case you don't know how to do the mind map, you can follow these steps to create a mind map. Start with a central idea in the middle of the page. Then add branches to each key point or theme. And then add sub-branches with key phrases or diagrams to explain the key concepts. A great way for visual learners to keep their notes organized is to use color. Different colored pens or highlighters can help you to organize information and separate topics. An example of the notes of a visual learner is what you have on your screen. If you are an auditory learner, then we suggest that you listen to tapes of recorded assignments. Tape record your own textbook reading. Read aloud. You can also talk over ideas from class and what you are studying with other students. You can also participate in class discussions. Lastly, be advised that you listen to audio tapes on the subject. If you're an auditory learner and you are asking what method works best for auditory learners in taking notes, then note that the best note-taking strategies for auditory learners allow you to listen and repeat the information. If available, recording the class with an audio recording device is a good option. This allows you to listen during class, and when studying, use the audio recording to listen again. Another good example of effective note-taking for auditory learners is speaking aloud and recording. This method allows you to record yourself explaining topics verbally. You can then use the recording to listen to the material on the bus, walking to school, while doing chores, etc. If audio recording isn't an option, another strategy you can use for note-taking is to listen and then write, instead of listening and writing at the same time. This means listening and absorbing the information first, gathering your thoughts, and then writing down your summary point. Now, a quick tip for you. Many auditory learners benefit from listening to music while they study written material. This may seem counterintuitive, but music can reduce the background noise and help you to focus on the task at hand. Make sure you choose music without lyrics, such as classical music, to help avoid distraction. If you're a kinesthetic learner, we advise that you stand up and move around while you are studying. Take frequent breaks while studying. Also, make use of your hands and write things down as you study. Use the computer to reinforce learning. You can also be physically active by experimenting with objects and then memorize or drill while walking. If you're a kinesthetic learner and you're wondering which note-taking method works best for you, then I would say that the best methods of note-taking for tactile learners allows for some sort of engagement and or movement. A great note-taking method for tactile or kinesthetic learners is writing notes on flashcards or note cards. Your study session should also include taking active breaks while writing notes or finding a way to release some energy while sitting for long periods of time. Some strategies include squeezing a stress ball, getting up and walking around from time to time, chewing gum, or tapping your foot, which I know most of you are good with. If available, typing notes on a laptop or other devices can be a great way for you to create your notes. The act of typing involves both hands and can keep you busy and moving more than writing with one hand. A quick tip for you is that when making study flashcards, create actions for each card to help you remember the material. Another good way to use the flashcards is to sort them into piles. Create one pile for the material you know and are comfortable with, and another pile for the material you need to study more. For read and write learners, read and write learners like to read to learn. These individuals prefer to write and read printed words to understand and convey information. Read or write learners are great at organizing information into lists. They are also good with remembering information they write down. Lastly, they convey information through writing. If you're a read or write learner and you're wondering which note taking is best for you, then typically, you as a read or write learner like to write out complete thoughts and use headings to organize information. A great note-taking strategy for read or write learners is the sentence method. Write down information in full sentence form. Use headings to organize your notes by topic. Stick to writing the most important points to keep up to speed with the teacher. Because read or write learners prefer to use printed words, this method is great when returning to the notes to study. A quick tip: For read or write learners, writing information in the margins of handouts rather than just highlighting the content is really good. This way, you can read the content and write to help you retain the information better. Finding out which type of learner you are is the first step in taking better study notes and becoming a highly successful student. By discovering and better understanding your own learning style, you can leverage these strategies to improve your quality of learning and grades. Thank you for spending this time with us. Until we meet again on the next course, remember, we are here to cheer you on to greatness.